Here's a question for you. Should Guerrilla Games spend their resources and assets on a new Killzone game? My opinion, of course, absolutely. This episode we'll talk about Killzone, and more Killzone, no doubt. See you on the inside. So, Killzone. Are we excited about Killzone? Yes. But you're probably asking yourself, why are you so excited about Killzone? Well, I'm personally of the opinion that I believe Killzone is in the making right now. I do. And of course, many of you who stay close to the net, you know why I'm saying that. A couple weeks back, Guerrilla Games gave an update that they're moving their not necessarily moving their offices, but they're expanding their offices, and they're making room for their studio to bring out games that are in their current library of offerings at a more steady clip. We know that Horizon Zero Dawn took them, what, 5-6 years to put out. The game was magnificent. We loved Horizon Zero Dawn. But at the same time, they mentioned that it's going to help them to put out not only games like Horizon Zero Dawn every 2-3 years, but other games in their portfolio. And of course, we know that the Guerrilla Games Studios is known for Killzone. And that's why we're having this conversation right now. So, Killzone has been one of the best shooters personally for myself, and so upon hearing this news, I personally was very excited about it. I've heard across the net many people, suggesting that Guerrilla Games sit back and just focus more on Horizon Zero Dawn and kind of put Killzone to sleep. How could you? I believe that's heresy. It's blasphemous talk. We don't want to do that. We don't want you to do that, I should say. We want more Killzone. And so, thinking about why I do believe Killzone should be a game that Guerrilla Games is currently, or should be currently developing, I believe they are. I believe right now, I believe Guerrilla Games is actually working on a new Killzone game. But what do we want from a new Killzone game? How expansive should the new Killzone be? What should it be about? We know that the lore is there. It's a magnificent story when you start piecing together what's going on paper. However, sometimes when you look at the games that have been dropped for the series, from Killzone 1, Killzone 2, 3, you have your Killzone Mercenary, which was magnificent, as well as Killzone Liberation, and then Shadowfall. When you look at all of them, there's something that seems to, however, be missing from those games. Even though it had great shooter mechanics, great carnage, great gunplay, the weightiness of the weapons, it just was fantastic. However, with the Killzone series, that one common denominator across all of those games was the lack of that identifiable character. And I believe Guerrilla Games may have missed the mark in where their focus was spent. When you look at the series, Guerrilla Games talked about the fact that the story was basically given to companies that weren't necessarily within the confines of Guerrilla, but Guerrilla, being the masterminds from a technical standpoint, they would bring all the bells and whistles, but then the story was handed off to someone else, and it was, pieced together with their technical marvel. But at the same time, you never really emotionally bought into the lore of Killzone, right? And so a lot of times you have these people who, like myself and others, who are hardcore fans, and then you have we're the niche fans, and then you have those who can take it or leave it, like whatever, Killzone, they don't have to make another one. However, when you understand the lore, you can say to yourself, you know what, we believe that Guerrilla Games has dropped the ball on the Killzone series from a storytelling standpoint, but that brings us to our current subject matter of storytelling, of creating an identifiable character, an identifiable experience that associates itself with Killzone, that makes more people to buy into it. And so when I think about Killzone and the series and where it can go, I'm excited about that potential lending itself from, or borrowing itself from, the Horizon Zero Dawn title. That game, from a storytelling standpoint, was wonderful. And of course, we now understand that in-house Guerrilla Games has some great writers, a great team of writers, that I'm eager to see what they're going to do with Killzone. Now, first, I want to talk about Killzone being a necessity. Does it matter for Guerrilla Games to put out another Killzone? It does. It matters. They should put out another Killzone game. It's vital to the studio, and it's important. You have enough of a fan base to where Killzone can grow significantly based on the next approach being the right approach. There's a lot of PlayStation 4 hype and momentum going into all of the first-party games that come out for the PlayStation 4. A new Killzone game would raise eyebrows. However, I personally believe that the next Killzone should be a reboot. It should be a reboot. Now, when I say a reboot, what do I mean? I would say reference God of War as the right approach to what a reboot should be for an established series like Killzone. God of War was rebooted, but it was definitely a sequel. Okay, when you play God of War, you understand what happened with God of War 3. You don't think about God of War Ascension, but when you look at God of War 3 and the conclusion of those events, and then you go into God of War, it's 4, but it's God of War. It's the appropriate reboot that makes sense, and it goes into this whole new perspective that has us all excited because the game delivered big time. Killzone needs to go in that type of a direction. I've had a blast with every single Killzone game. Okay, sure, we can nitpick this Killzone or that Killzone or whatnot. Yes, most of us believe that from a gameplay standpoint, Killzone 2 and Killzone 3 was the pinnacle of the series. I would throw in Killzone Mercenary as well. That was an amazing, in fact, I would call it the best handheld shooter experience to date. Just an opinion. However, with the writers that they have at Guerrilla Games now, one can't help but to be excited about where they can now take the series. Is it a necessity that, or is it necessary that Killzone be a series that Guerrilla Games needs to continue to foster? Yes, I personally believe they now have the people in place, the tools in place to really make Killzone something. Piggybacking off of the success of Horizon Zero Dawn, Killzone now can really spread its wings with the right story, with the right lore, with the right ideas behind the experience. Now, I'm going to go as far as to say this. When you look at what's happening on the shooter front in the market, as far as games is concerned, it's getting played out when you drop a game that has a single player component and a multiplayer component. And in that single player component, you have the game that begins from point A and it ends at Z. Okay? And most of these experiences are quite linear. Alright? And then they tack on a multiplayer experience to that. Because of games like the Battlefields, your Call of Duties, and nowadays you have a lot of free-to-play games like your H1Z1s, your PUBGs, your Fortnites. These are experiences that are offering you a battle royale experience as well. And I'm not saying that Killzone should touch the battle royale experience. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is the next Killzone should not be what the previous games were. The new Killzone should not be a game where there's a single player campaign and there's a multiplayer attached to it. And the single player campaign is a linear experience that we've had in the past. Because there's not enough meat to that. I personally believe that when you look at the shooter genre, that's sort of played out. Look at Battlefield, for example, the Battlefield series. We buy Battlefield because of the multiplayer. And then they'll throw a single player campaign there. And not saying that the experiences aren't compelling, but they're somewhat forgettable. No offense, Dice. But what I'm saying is those single player campaigns, or you see what's happening with Black Ops 4, they're going the whole Battle Royale. They're calling it something else, but it's Battle Royale in its own unique way. They're trying to find something unique that needs to be offered alongside the multiplayer experience. So I'll go as far as to say this about the next Killzone. Yes, I do believe the next Killzone is in the works. If you have comments about that, please comment below. I would love to go back and forth with you. But my point is this. The next Killzone, from a single-player campaign standpoint, does not need to be a linear experience. Does not need to be what they've been in the past. Okay? That needs to be abandoned. What needs to happen is some sort of larger-than-life experience. I believe Guerrilla Games knocked it out of the park with Horizon Zero Dawn. Was Horizon Zero Dawn the perfect RPG? No, it wasn't the perfect RPG. Was it amazing? Yes. In fact, it was so good that people argue whether it was an RPG. Oh, it was an action adventure with some RPG elements, right? That's what people say. Regardless, okay? Those RPG elements with that experience, with that story, with that amazing character, and the exhilarating gameplay was fantastic. Now, safe to say, Guerrilla Games, they know what they're doing when it comes to making open world, RPG element, action adventures, right? Okay. So take that experience, put one in the first person perspective. What does that look like? Okay, so I'm not going to say that I'm going to go 100% and say that Guerrilla needs to make the next Killzone be this open world RPG-like experience. But what I am saying is the next Killzone does need to have some type of ambition in that direction, possibly. Okay? Because Killzone, when you look at its lore, when you look at its timeline, the Killzone series really has a lot of meat that hasn't yet been really fostered. The true character to the Killzone series, think about this. Though we've always played as the ISA, when you play Killzone, you're thinking about the Hellgas. Those guys are like tenacious. They're amazing. They're brutal. Yet, when you look at the story, are they really the bad guys? Are the Hellgas really the bad guys? Now, when you educate yourself on the story and what happened with government, with the financing of things that were happening with the resources in the Killzone universe, you then discover that the Hellgas weren't necessarily the bad guys, so to speak. And you've been fighting alongside the ISA as though the Hellgas are the enemies. Of course, the art direction of the game shows the Hellgas in this very menacing manner, yet when you look at the story, they're not really the bad guys, so to speak. There's a lot of meat there to take the series now into a new reboot direction, okay? Introducing some wonderful characters that the series already has, but expanding it and making it bigger. So again, I'm not saying Killzone needs to be an RPG. What I am saying is Killzone needs to be approached with a delicate, fine-tooth comb that is more ambitious than a traditional single-player campaign approach. That's all I'm asking. Yes, my heart of hearts, my my investigative instincts are telling me that the next Killzone is in the works, and it needs to be. I believe because the PlayStation brand, in the form of the PlayStation 4, is doing as well as it's doing, I'll also address the idea. I was asked the question, Derek, so you want Killzone to come out? Yes, I want to see another Killzone. When should it launch? And what platform? What do you mean what platform? PlayStation. Well, you know it's exclusive. Should it come out on the PlayStation 4? Or should Sony wait to drop that game on the PlayStation 5? Personally, I would go as far as to say I believe the next Killzone should launch on the PlayStation 5, running at 4K 60 frames per second. I do. And I also believe that it should be a simultaneous launch on the PlayStation 4. I do. The market share of the PlayStation 4 right now is absolutely bananas. Who knows what it's going to be at by the time the next Killzone, which I'm speculating to be in the works, is available. Okay? But back to the idea of what Killzone needs to be. The experience, when you look at certain shooters, right now you have the Battle Royale, you have the Call of Duties that's very linear, but they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with the Call of Duty series. Black Ops 4 is now offering some offshoot of Battle Royale, and you have Battlefield, the Battlefield series that seems to be going in a new direction of Battlefield 5. We know Battlefield 5 is in the works. What would that single player campaign look like? We don't know the specifics of that. However, when it comes to Killzone, anything that's not Call of Duty, anything that's not Battlefield right now, and you're a shooter, if you're not going the free-to-play route, if you're not going the Battle Royale route, or combining those two, then you're really playing with fire. And so I hope that Guerrilla Games understands that and focus on focus on the attributes that are making the first-party Sony games so sought after. And I believe that's founded on great wonderful narrative storytelling. And I believe that when you look at great storytelling isn't necessarily bottled up in a linear experience. Now, there are some linear experiences that offer amazing stories. I would say Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. That story was fantastic in a linear experience, which I don't fault it for at all. But when you're talking about a shooter, that's been always trying to prove itself, always trying to get over that hump and get out of the category of just being a great niche shooter, becoming that mainstream must-have shooter, I believe that Guerrilla Games needs to look at great writing, bring back the ideas that were fostered with the first Killzone. I enjoyed the idea of playing as Luger, which was an echo bridge experience when you play with my man from Killzone Shadowfall, Lucas Keller. Correct me if I'm wrong at the bottom. But Lucas was also a Shadow Marshal. Playing with the Shadow Marshal, the stealth experience was great, but we have to have a bombastic experience as well. So playing with Shevchenko, I loved it. Playing with Rico, I loved it. Most people didn't like Rico's personality. I dug Rico. I was heartbroken when John Templar was killed. I was wondering, was Haka, the double agent, the double agent, if you will, from the first Killzone. I was hoping he was going to come back and make an appearance in some of these games, and we've not seen that. And so, again, I believe it's been Guerrilla trying to juggling the best case scenario with each offering, and what it's lacked is that great story that touches you emotionally, that makes you look forward to the next experience. I believe that's one of the advantages that, and of course the PlayStation Nation may crucify me for this, but when you look at the Halo experience, you look at the Halo games, regardless of whether you like them or not, or whether this game was better than that game in the series, Master Chief, his story, who he was, that whole idea made for a compelling argument for itself, for the series. And I believe that's what Killzone lacks. But now moving in this new direction of games becoming more ambitious, games requiring there be great storytelling, great voice acting, great emotional connections to the experience. You know, it's like now with this new Killzone, I hope that Guerrilla Games really looks at this from a broader perspective of how to truly sell the game and by drawing in the player from not just a trigger pull experience, but from an experience that makes you talk about the various characters, the environment, the way you were able to interact with the environment, the things that didn't necessarily associate with you killing an enemy, but it was associated with how you were able to, let's say you played as a Hellgas, how you were able to, as that Hellgas, go against the order of your government. And maybe on the other side of the ISA, there's that same dilemma. Now that does echo what we experienced in Killzone Shadowfall, but it wasn't expounded upon enough. Okay, there wasn't enough elements to make you say, wow, this is a roller coaster ride. This is exhilarating. Wow, I have to take down this massive enemy. Wow, trying to figure out this cloak and dagger experience at the same time. Killzone needs to be ambitious. I believe that Guerrilla Games needs to basically just let it all hang out. Sony, spare no expense with the next Killzone, because I believe that with the success of Horizon Zero Dawn, you're looking at the potential of a great experience for the future with Killzone. Reboot it, get some great writers on it to tie us so we can buy into it. Okay, I'm not saying that the game does not need a multiplayer component. It does need a competitive component. I believe that needs to be something that's also well cultivated, but at the same time, when people look at Killzone, by and large, that one kind of gaping void that people always talk about is the story, and it doesn't, how does that relate, and how does that make it better than what it is? When you look at a game like Horizon Zero Dawn, I keep going back to Horizon Zero Dawn because I believe that Guerrilla Games, they basically created their own blueprint to make Killzone great. When you look at Horizon Zero Dawn, the story was fantastic. I was blown away by the story, but at the same time, the gameplay was equally as wonderful, right? the things you could do are just so out of the box thinking. To watch a Thunderjaw that you controlled fight a behemoth, and you're just sitting back there doing whatever, and you're able to watch that alongside these objectives and side missions and things that you can do. You know, one just begs, wow, I wonder if they could not do exactly that, but bring that type of unique creativity to a first-person shooter, the likes of a Killzone, where you have this, you know, these space Nazis, if you will, versus this seemingly good guys, but are they? There's a lot there. So we're hoping that Killzone is in the works right now. We believe it is. We have no we have no proof that the game is being made, other than the fact that Guerrilla Games has came out and said that they're expanding things to bring or to exploit or to bring out their current portfolio of games, and we know Killzone is definitely in that portfolio. And of course, we're excited about the new Horizon Zero Dawn 2. They've not announced it, but it's inevitable. The game's coming out. It sold over 8-some odd million copies by now, and so we know that game. They're focusing on that as I speak. But Guerrilla, give us a new Killzone. We're excited about the new Killzone. Have no idea what it's going to be, but we're still excited because we're fans of the series. But we're looking forward to hearing more about the potential of a Killzone. But who knows? But that's all we have for today for Killzone. Hey, I want to go back and forth with you guys in the comment section about Killzone. What's your take on it? Do you believe Guerrilla Games has now the team of people that could bring forth a great Killzone? Are you one of the are you some of the gamers who don't believe Killzone needs to be made? Why? Let us know in the comment section. So let's talk about it. All right? See you guys next time. Take care.
Yeah.